Hello everybody. So today I am going to make, it's going to be a busy day. We're going to make some strawberry rhubarb pie filling, and then we're also going to can some pineapple. Let me show you what I got going on here. So I've already diced up some of the strawberries. I still need to dice the rhubarb. I still need to dice one more pineapple. We're going to can some pineapple tidbits. Some of the jars are ready. My canner is ready. So let's get started. Okay, so I figured we would start with finishing the pineapple here. We'll chop up the rest of the stuff we need first. So we'll chop this and then we'll chop the rhubarb. Actually, how about we do the rhubarb first? This is really juicy. I don't want it to get everywhere. So let's do the rhubarb first. I've washed all of this already. This rhubarb was actually gifted to me by my mother-in-law. She got it from someone else and she didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, I will take it. So yeah, we're going to make her, the only thing she requested from me was a strawberry rhubarb cake. So we might add that into this video too. So all I'm going to do is dice these into really, really small pieces. I wanted to do the strawberries ahead of time. That does take quite a while. And you guys don't have to sit here and watch me dice and clean strawberries. So it is the start of preservation season. So do not be surprised if you see a lot of canning videos from me. I was actually in the garden this morning watering my plants, and a lot of my tomatoes are starting to turn color. So we're going to be making salsa soon. I think I might actually, if they don't all ripen at once for the tomato sauce I plan to make, I might freeze some of them until all of them are fully ripe, and then we'll make the tomato sauce. But we'll see how it goes. But do not be surprised if you see a whole bunch of canning videos from me soon here. Or at least garden preservation videos. So, yeah, in today's video we're probably going to do the pineapple, strawberry rhubarb pie filling, and if we have time I will also film making a strawberry rhubarb cake for my mother-in-law. It's fairly easy, so. That was her one request. She loves strawberry rhubarb cake. And I told her I could totally make her one. So literally all I'm doing is dicing them similar size as the strawberries that I've already done. So for the jars today, the jars and the lids actually. Actually no, the lids I'm going to put in a pot of water. I like doing it that way, so I'm going to continue to do it that way. But all of the stuff for canning today is going to be cold packed. So the pineapple is going to be cold packed, and the pie filling will be packed right from the pot. So we don't need to keep the jars in the oven today. A little bit different method today, just due to the type of things that we're canning. So rhubarb is extremely sour. My sister-in-law did not realize that. And she took a bite of it. She's like, well, what does it taste like? I'm like, come here, taste. She was going to make salsa with it. And I'm like, that's not a good idea. Rhubarb is quite sour. That's why it goes so well with strawberries. You can peel your rhubarb, but it is not necessary. It all cooks down pretty much the same, so it's more a preference, but there's zero reason to, I mean, I'm sure there's reasons you could find to peel it, but it's not necessary. I already have a little bit of rhubarb in my freezer, enough to make like muffins or something, like strawberry rhubarb muffins or the cake. But today we're going to use some of this in the cake, so. So I am going to finish chopping this up off camera, and then when I'm ready to do the pineapple, I'll come back. Okay, so I finished the rhubarb, and now we just need to finish cutting up the pineapple. I already have a lot of it cut here. I diced it. I got these on sale at the grocery store. So I thought it was perfect time, since I'm canning a whole bunch of things right now, to be able to can it at the same time. I'm just making sure I got all the brown pieces off from the outside. They got a really tough texture. I don't want that in my mouth. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut around the core here. And then I'm just going to dice it all. I did want them fairly finely diced. I do find regular tidbits of pineapples that you buy in the store to be a little big. But if some of them are a little bigger, it's not that big of a deal. So I think once I'm done dicing this up, we're going to fill the jars for the pineapple first, since it's such an easy process, and then we'll move on to the pie filling. So I have some pineapple juice in my cupboard, and I thought maybe I would add just a little bit of it to the water that I'm going to put in with the pineapple. Some lemon juice, some water, and a splash of the pineapple juice, just to give it a little bit more flavor while it's in the jar. I'm sure the pineapple will also secrete their own juices, but just a little extra flavor. I'm going to chop some of those a little smaller. If I could grow pineapples here, I would. We are not even remotely hot enough here in Canada for growing a pineapple. So when I see them on sale for a really good price, I try to bring them home and can them a bit. I still have one jar from last year. I canned them in a big jar, well, a pint jar, and I find that's a little too much for most of the recipes that I make. So I'm going to can them today in these half pint jars. I think they'll go farther, and I won't waste as much. I try not to waste anything, but when you open a bigger jar, sometimes you don't have a use for it. Okay, so I'm just going to clean up here and get the lids ready in the pot, and then I will give you a look and we'll start filling the jars. Well, actually I'll start making the brine. Not really brine, it's like a lick water, lemon, and a little bit of sugar. Actually, I don't think I'm even going to add sugar to this. Lemon juice, water, and a little bit of pineapple juice. And then we'll fill the jars with those two. Okay, so I put 6 cups of water in this bowl here. Let's do the lemon juice first. This will help with the canning. So I'm going to put about 1/4 cup of lemon juice in this water. I'm going to put a couple splashes of pineapple juice. Sorry about that, my camera quit for some reason. Okay, so I'm just going to fill them. So we've got the lemon juice, the water, and a little bit of pineapple juice in there. I'm going to leave about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of headspace in the jar. And then we'll fill them after we've done putting all the fruit into the jars here. I think these smaller jars are going to work a lot better for me than doing pint jars. Sometimes I only need a little bit of pineapple to add to a recipe, so I don't like to open a whole big pint jar for that. We'll be wiping the rims in a couple minutes here after we fill the juice. There's also some juice in this bowl here, so I have to leave a bit of space for that too. I think I'm going to dump some of this out just so it has enough of this with the lemon juice in it for the canning. I have my dishwasher going, if you can hear the bubbling in the background. Oh, the bubbling is actually my pot. I just realized that for the canning lids. But my dishwasher is going. I did put the canning lids in a pot of water to soften the rims. I just like doing that. I find everything seals better. Getting a lot more jars out of this than I expected. I had to go buy a jar of pineapple for my fiance's cake, and it was like $2.50 for a jar of for a little can of pineapple. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my god. I had completely forgotten I still had one jar left that I had canned myself. Could have saved myself money. I think I might have enough for one more. Perfect. 2, 4, 6, 8 jars this made. From, how many? 3 pineapples. Take a little bit of this one. There we go. Okay. So I have some vinegar and water on this cloth. Actually, let's fill the juice first. I almost didn't think properly. Okay, so same thing, we still got to leave some headspace in here. See, that one I filled a little too full. It's very easy to preserve your own food. I highly recommend it. It's healthier and it's cheaper. So some of these liquid are going to go down once we take the air bubbles out. So we might need to refill a little bit more of the liquid once some of it settles. think I made way too much brine. I call it brine. It's technically closer to a simple syrup. Okay, where's my chopstick? If you have watched my previous videos, I explain how I really like to use a chopstick to take the air bubbles out. It's due to, I do not recommend you use a knife. It can score the edge of the glass and ruin the integrity of the jar, and the jar can break. So I would recommend using something soft. I just found that a chopstick works perfect for this. I know lots of people that will use the end of a spoon or just random small stuff like a spatula. Spatula I find is a little too big, but if you wanted to add extra sugar to the simple syrup mixture, you could, but I find pineapple is very sweet on its own, so I didn't want to add too much sugar to this. Actually, we added no sugar to this. I added some pineapple juice, which has its own sugar in it. All the air bubbles coming out is a lot. If you see how much the liquid came down. This allows for the product to stay fresher longer as well, because you don't have bubbles of air in there. Air and oxygen is what causes your food to rot, right? So, or at least rot faster. So I'm going to add a tiny bit more to each one here. I think we'll just do it by hand here. I haven't wiped the rims yet, so. Okay, so let's wipe the rims. Let me get another one here. I always start with clean everything when I do canning. I like to start fresh in the kitchen. Okay, so these are actually quite sticky, so I need to wipe these really, really well. I'm going to put a little bit more vinegar on this. I want to make sure that they're nice and cleaned. Pineapple is a very sticky mixture. If you want your jars to seal right, you have to wipe the rims, especially when you're dealing with stuff that's really sticky. But anything, you need to wipe the rims. You get debris on there from filling the jar, even if it's not a sticky product. And then your jars don't seal, and then you wasted all that time, and you have to re-jar it, reprocess it. It's a pain. So, okay, now let's put the lids on. I'm just going to bring this over. Canning is actually one of my favorite things to do. I've been doing it ever since I was, oh man, young teenager. I'd say 13 or 14 when I started going to my grandmother's house. I watched my mother can as well. Me and her never really canned together, but me and my grandmother canned together a lot. So as soon as these are done, I'm going to put these right into the canner, and then we'll get started on the strawberry rhubarb pie filling. You only want to tighten them hand tight. You cannot tighten them too much, because if you tighten them too much, when they're in the canner, they won't have, the jar and the lid will not have room to contract, and the jar can break. Okay, let's put these in the canner. I have it started already. I'll give you a look. Okay, so I have my canner started here. So I'm just going to stick my jars in. I try to make sure they're not touching. Okay, so I got all the jars in. Now I'm just going to fill it so that it's about 3 to 4 inches above the top of the jar. This is so the jars seal properly. With pint jars, I wouldn't need to fill it all the way, or half pint jars, pardon me. The pint jars, I have to fill it completely. Okay, so I'm going to add some vinegar to the water. It helps the water not calcify onto the jars. And then we're going to process these. So I'm processing them for 20 minutes. Let's start making the strawberry rhubarb pie filling. Okay, so I took out a cup of rhubarb and a cup of strawberries. This is going to be for the cake recipe that we do later. So I wanted to make sure I got that out. Let me just put that aside. Okay, so it calls for 3 cups of strawberries, the recipe I have here. This is 2 cups. That's pretty close, so let's do say 6. I want it to be a little bit more strawberry flavor than rhubarb. So that is 3 times the recipe. Okay, so about 2 cups of rhubarb per recipe. So 1. Did I say 2 cups? Wait, no, so that's 2 times the recipe because I did 6 cups. I almost messed that up. And 4 cups of this. The rest of this rhubarb, there's actually quite a bit here. I don't want to have the ratio a little too sour, so I'm just going to freeze this and use it in other stuff. Okay, so let's add the rest of the ingredients. We need about half a cup of sugar. It says about 1/4 cup. So we're 2 timesing the recipe. So it's about half. I'm going to taste this and make sure that this tastes right, because that does seem like a little amount for the amount of rhubarb. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll taste in a couple minutes here. This recipe calls for vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon per recipe. So there we go. And salt, 1/4 teaspoon per recipe. Balance out the flavors. Lemon juice. This is for the canning process. We need 2 tablespoons per recipe, so 4. 2, 3, 4. What else do we need? Oh, there's 1/3 cup of brown sugar in this recipe. I forgot about that. So let's see how many cups that is here. Do about that much. Okay, and there's clear gel in this recipe because we are canning it. So I'm going to add, about 2 cups of water to this. I do want it to have lots of sauce. And then about 1/4 cup of clear gel. Clear gel is what you need to use when you're canning pie filling or anything like that. It holds up to the high temperatures of the canner. So I'm just going to mix that right in. I think I'm just going to leave this right into this. I like having measuring spoons or measuring cups in all my things, then I don't ever have to worry about it. It's very convenient. So we're just going to mix all this together. And once it starts cooking down, we'll give it a taste and see if it needs more sugar. I have 6 quart jars prepped for this. We'll see if we need more. We might make less, because once this cooks down, it's going to make a lot less, right? Beautiful green and red mixture. You can see all the liquid on the bottom. Okay, let's wait until this starts simmering. Okay, so it started boiling and thickening. Looks great. Let's give it a taste test. Okay. I just want to make sure it's sweet enough, but not too sweet. Rhubarb is quite tart. Tiny bit more. Not a ton, because you want the tart, a little bit of the tart flavor. I'm just adding maybe a little less than 1/4 cup. It's actually really good. I didn't know what to think of having the vanilla in this recipe. It tastes really good. Okay, I think this is ready to be jarred. Okay, so I decided to change a little bit, and I'm going to do them in pint jars rather than quarts. I decided to do this for 2 reasons. One, I could use them for crisps or small baking projects rather than a whole pie. And if I need a whole pie, I can use 2 jars. And I can use my new pressure cooker. It's also a water bath canner, and not have to bring out my big, huge water bath canner. So we're going to use the pint jars instead. So we're just going to fill them with the mixture here. Looks delicious. So if you hear the oven beep in the background, I preheated it for the cake that we're going to make right after this. Oh, this smells so good. The vanilla gives it a different taste. It enhances some of it. I would never have thought to put, I just would never have thought to put vanilla in this. I'm pleasantly surprised. Oven's preheated. I think this is going to be delicious, especially in the winter time. Making like a homemade crisp with this instead of like apple or blueberry. Give it a little bit different flavor for once. So it's awesome. I'm kind of excited about it. So this, we're going to put the lids on right away. I'm leaving about 1/2 inch headspace, just so there's enough room for the filling to bubble. Let me bring the whole pot over here. Move it out of the way. So you can still somewhat see what I'm doing here. Just like that. Look how beautiful. It's a really nice red color. Sometimes I like to have small quantities of things. I can do more with them instead of opening a whole big jar to do a really small project, and then you have to think of what to do with the rest of the mixture. So to me this would be easier, just because then I can just take 2 if I want to make a pie. Another jar. So I could have put these in the oven, but I chose not to this time. I don't think I did with the apple pie filling either, but I do like to have my jars fairly hot. But as long as the lids are hot, I find all of my jars seal. So I'm happy with this. I can hear the pressure cooker, or canner, pardon me. We're water bath canning. It's getting up to pressure here. I can hear it. Up to temperature, pardon me, not pressure. That's what the beeping is. It takes a bit to heat everything all up so that the contents of the jar is heating at the same time as the water, so the jars don't break. So now it's doing its canning process. This is such a beautiful color, oh my gosh. I don't usually can a lot of strawberry rhubarb pie filling, only because I never had a rhubarb plant. But I do now, and we'll probably be making this again together at some point. If you do not have clear gel, you do not have to use clear gel. Just what I would do is just make the mixture without the clear gel, and then when you go to use the pie filling, heat it up in a pot and use either flour or cornstarch, and you can do it that way too. You don't have to use clear gel. I just personally like to have everything done in the jar already, but it's a matter of preference. Oh. See how many jars. I'm hoping we get at least 6 here. I think we're not going to quite get 6. We'll see. I might do some of my smaller jars over here to add to baking, like muffins and that sort of thing. It's venting. Okay, so we're going to put in a couple small jars. Oh, we're only going to get 1. So we got 5 pints and a half pint. Not bad. There we go. Okay, let me wipe up the mess here. Okay, and as soon as the pineapple is ready to come out of the canner, I will show you that portion and us putting the strawberry rhubarb pie filling into process, and then we'll start making the cake. Okay, so the pineapple is done processing. So I'm just going to pull them out of the canner here. They look beautiful. And then as soon as I'm done taking these out, I'm going to directly put the strawberry rhubarb pie filling in. Okay. We're going to have to fill the water more once we're done this. Well, we'll see, because these jars are bigger. They take up more space, more volume. I'm not worried about putting these into the hot water. these jars are still really, really hot from the mixture that we cooked. So I'm not worried about it in the least. Okay, let me get a cup. We'll use this one. I'm going to add just a tiny, tiny bit more water. I know these pint jars need to be right up to the top, so right about there. Okay, and then I'm just going to process these, and as soon as they come out, I'll show you the finished product. But in the meantime, let's start on the cake. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of flour in with the strawberries and the rhubarb. This will allow it so that when it's in the cake, it doesn't fall to the bottom. So I'm just going to mix it up. Okay, we'll set that to the side. I'm reusing my bowl that I had the strawberries in. That should be more than fine. Oh, I need a cloth. Okay, so for this recipe, we need 1/4 cup of softened salted butter. We need 3/4 cup of brown sugar. This is a 1/2 cup measure that's in here. Taking out my little bears. I have little gingerbread men and little bears to keep my brown sugar soft. I found them on Amazon if you would like to look at those. And then another 1/2. I did not realize that so many recipes with strawberry and rhubarb use brown sugar. That surprises me. Is there regular sugar? Yes. 3/4 cup of regular sugar. This is also a 1/2 cup measure. Ooh. Okay, so we're going to mix this together and cream it together so it's nice and creamy. I'll give you a closer look. Okay, so let's mix this. I'm noticing I have a couple lumps in here on my brown sugar here. I just want to break them up. I want to make sure they get broken up. Okay. Okay, so we need 1 egg. We need, oh, I need my measuring spoon, just 1 sec. We need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 2. Now let's put the salt in as well. We need about 1/2 teaspoon. About there. Let's mix this in. Okay. Salt, sugar. Okay, we need about 1/2 cup of milk. Just using the same thing I was measuring the berries out with. 1/2 cup of milk. Let's mix that up. And then all we have left is the strawberries and the raspberries, or the raspberries, strawberries and the rhubarb, 1 cup of each. And then we need, here, let's give this a small mix, just a small light one. Okay, and let's see here, milk, sugar, egg, salt. Okay, so all that's left is the flour. It says 2 cups of flour. It says it could take a tiny bit more, just depending. So 1. That one wasn't quite full, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, so let's mix this together. I'm mixing on low, hopefully it won't go everywhere. I'm going to add a tiny bit more milk. This looks quite thick. Not too much because the strawberries and the rhubarb are going to break down in the recipe and create moisture. But I also don't want this to be really, really dry either. Okay, so that's it, and then we just pour it into the pan. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so we're going to put this, I already greased the pan. So now I'm just going to put it right in. This is an 8x8 pan. The recipe says to cook it on 350 for 35 to 45 minutes. I think I would use your discretion on how hot your oven runs. I did add a little bit more liquid, so I am going to pay attention to how moist the cake is. I don't want it to be too raw in the center. So I'm just trying to make it look pretty. Okay, so I'm going to bake this, and then we're going to make the glaze that goes on top. Okay, so to make the glaze, I'm only doing a tiny bit of glaze. She doesn't like a lot of sweet stuff, but I know this cake has a lot of rhubarb in it, so I want to put a little tiny bit of a glaze on top. I think I'm just going to drizzle it though, so it's not too sweet. So I'm doing about half a cup of icing sugar. Then I'm going to do, I was thinking lemon glaze, but I think I'm going to do vanilla just because the rhubarb is so sour already. So do vanilla. And then I'm just going to add, that was probably about a teaspoon of vanilla. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of heavy cream. You can use milk if you want to try and thin it out. I might need more of this. Yes, I'll need more. I like using heavy cream for glazes. It gives a really creamy, delicious texture to the glaze. And I find it also helps balance out some of the sweetness. So literally you just mix it all together. And this is what we're going to put on top of the cake after it comes out of the oven. I'm probably going to let it cool a tiny bit before I put the glaze on. If you prefer your glaze to be melted into the cake, you would do it when it's hot. But I want it to be on top of the cake, not soaked into it. So I'm going to do it after it cools. I just added a little bit more cream. It needed a little bit more. There we go, and this is what it looks like. And this is what we're going to put on top of the cake. So after the cake is done baking, I will show you what it looks like. And when we take the pie filling out of the canner, I'll give you an update on that as well. Okay, so the canning is done. There's still a few jars here that need to seal. There's 3 here. They've only been out for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. They're still really, really hot. So these ones will seal. All the pineapple. So we got 8 half pints of pineapple, a half pint of strawberry rhubarb pie filling, and 5 full pints. And then this is the finished product of the strawberry rhubarb cake. So we're going to add the glaze to it. I put a piece of parchment paper underneath my rack here just in case it goes everywhere. And I don't want to add too much, so I'm literally just going to drizzle this. She doesn't like a lot of sugar, so I wanted to make sure there's only a little bit on top, just for the flavor. Make it look pretty. That's the main reason. And then I will give this to my mother-in-law probably later tonight, just so it's nice and fresh. There we go. There's the finished product. Looks beautiful. So guys, that was a fun day. Lots of canning. I have another canning video I'm doing tomorrow. We're going to be doing canned peaches. I have a bunch of peaches that I bought from a fruit truck. They here in BC, they do, some people will do fruit trucks. They'll go down to the Okanagan where we are able to grow some of these fruits where it's hotter, and they'll bring them up and sell them organically. So I have a bunch of peaches that we're going to do tomorrow. So I thank you for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.